but not as much as I thought I was going to see. There was um, a lot of activity around dense mountain ranges, and there was a lot of activity along rivers that flowed out of the dense mountain ranges out to the ocean.
So, like through the Colorado River, and well, it probably winds up flowing to the Gulf as it heads toward the east, right? As it's flowing through Arizona and Texas.
The Colorado River, I think the Colorado River dumps out in the Pacific, doesn't it?
I wasn't sure if it was the Gulf or the Pacific. I'm not sure how
Yeah.
far past Arizona it goes. And when I'm at the
Yeah.
Grand Canyon, I'm always confused about which way I'm looking.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just too overwhelming.
it winds its way out through along, if I'm not mistaken, along New Mexico and the California border for a while, and then
Right.
goes out to the Pacific.
Okay. Well, that's just something that normally I'm fantastic at geography, but that one had me befuddled.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And as far as the really weird sightings that were seen, the large concentrations around areas where there weren't lots of people, there's one in particular along a river. And that's the Columbia River that borders
really?
Washington and Oregon.
Yes.
And I was in the process of putting pins in the map.
Right.
And I was doing Washington only. I hadn't gotten to Oregon yet. So I'm putting pins in the map. And I got about maybe a third of the way through Washington State. And I stopped for lunch. And I think my wife asked me to run out to the store. So I went out to the store. I came back. And I thought, I'll get back on with the map and see what's what. And I looked at the map and said, that is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. There's this curlicue that, first of all, goes along the Washington-Oregon border. And then this curlicue heads straight north and goes west and then north again and curves up and around. I just thought it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So I opened up the Google and started looking at what's in that area. And lo and behold, the pins that I had put in there, and only about a third to the half of the way through the state. And the pins traced the Columbia River.
Really?
It was just so odd.
That is.
I had never seen that before. And in some of the areas there, it's kind of sparse, but there was still a lot of sightings. So anyhow, I just thought that was so cool. That's the number one area in the West, in my opinion, that should be studied.
Well, if you say so, I'm going to take that one to the bank. I know your work. And anyone who has not read your books needs to, because the information is so relevant to the study. And the map, for those that don't know, Tom did all three books. They're on our website, on our Facebook page for the show. He did They Are Here. And it is book 1, book 2, book 3. And it covers the central U.S., the eastern seaboard U.S., central U.S., and the western area. They are amazing books. When I first started reading Tom's work, I was overwhelmed because they're separated by what they are, by the style of craft that they are. And he also has the different fireballs. There's everything here that you're going to see that's an anomaly in the sky. And Tom, we're going to have to get a break here just in a couple of minutes. But when we come back, will you go into more detail about your map?
The map, sure.
Because I love mine. I look at it and study it all the time. So I think other people are going to want to as well. But we'll be back in about 3 minutes.
listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
And just like that, we are back. Tom, we were talking about your map, the sightings, and your map helps me to visualize so much better what is going on. And can you explain the map to people?
Sure. Let me tell you what got me going to do a map. I didn't want to do a U.S. map, even though I knew it was going to be important once I got it done. It was just so much work. I thought to myself, I don't want to even start this. This is going to be too hard. But anyhow, I did a map of New York State. It's where I live. And in that map, I just showed one particular kind of sighting. And I found that there were huge amounts of clusters around Buffalo and Rochester and Syracuse and Albany and New York City and Long Island. There was an awful lot of sightings around these areas. Mm-hmm. And none of it really made sense to me that there'd be so many in one spot, so many of one type. All right. So I was thinking, where else are people seeing these kinds of sightings? That's what sent me down the East Coast when I did my first book. I still hadn't done a U.S. map. So I did the first book, and then as I was heading towards the second book, the first state that I did was Ohio. And there were so many sightings in Ohio that I said, oh boy, there's something going on with the Great Lakes. I have got to do a map. That's when I started. So I got the great big foam board, and it had a 30 by 50 inch map, and I put it up on an easel, and I bought multiple kinds of pins. In all, I probably ended up buying close to $1,000 worth of pins.
Easily, I would think.
Yeah. And I started putting 3 different types of things seen on within the state of Ohio on the map. Now, the only reason I only did 3 different types, even though there's a whole bunch of different types, I picked the 3 largest. I realized that what was going to happen when I did that New York map, right, I was going to have so many pins I wasn't going to be able to fit them all on. So I figured, okay, let me just try the top 3 sightings and go from there. So I started putting pins on the map. After I finished the Central U.S., that was Volume 2, I went back and did Volume 1's pins.
I have a question there before you move on. Okay. How long did it take you to do Volume 1's pins?
Pins?
Because that's a lot of pins. Yeah,
probably about 3 weeks.
I would have thought more. That's interesting.
Yeah. I was familiar with a lot of the cities in the East Coast, having traveled so much.
Well, that's
so true. It made it really easy as far as the East Coast went. Central U.S. was a little bit more difficult because I had areas in Mississippi and Arkansas I had never heard of before. So I had to look everyone up on Google. And that took a lot of time.
Now, then when I got to the West, me. I could have helped you even with the pronunciations.
then when I got to the West, I had to look up virtually everything except for Denver and right. Albuquerque and stuff like that. I mean, I knew where they were, but that was about it. It took a long time. In all, it probably took a year to put the whole map together. Now, one of the things I noticed when I started putting the pins in there is, remember, the entire U.S. is on one map. It's 30 inches by 50 inches. So when you have a lot of sightings around, let me use, for example, New York City, I couldn't put that many pins around New York City. They were streaming out into the ocean. And it was just going to be crazy. Just absolutely crazy. So one of the things I did was I said, look, there's got to be an easier way around this. So I made a big pin equal 20 little pins. And I figured, okay, I'll put the big pins in, and that'll buy me some space. And it did. And it bought me space through the eastern U.S. and the central U.S. But then when I got out west, I had an even bigger problem. Phoenix, Seattle, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, I had to use a different color pin equaling 100 sightings, not 20, because there were so many. So I have lots of these little areas that are, show you 1 pin equals this, 10 pins equals that. And I have those in several different places on the map. I sent it out to a photographer who took, I think, a pretty good picture of it.
An excellent picture.
I was having trouble taking a picture of it. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. So anyhow, she did the photo for me, and then we had them printed up in 18 by 24 poster size. And the unfortunate part about that, they're pretty expensive to buy, for me to buy. So, and I couldn't charge an arm and a leg for them, because no one would buy them. And as it is, I'm still charging $20 for them, 20 or 25. And so what I did was, from the photo that was given to me by the photographer, I printed them up on 8.5 by 11.